Attention.
We need some music.
Please have
Snow!
Boom! I like that.
I'll be home for Christmas.
RPSM Talks.
RPSM Talks?
RPSM Talks?
RPSM Talks.
RPSM Talk.
RPSM Talks.
RPSM Talks. RPSM Talks.
We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples.
Welcome to RPSM Talks, which is brought to you by Regent Park School of Music. Again, welcome everyone. This is the 9th and final installment of RPSM Talks for 2021. Tonight, I'd like to welcome 3 directors from Grayson Music Group. Grayson is a group based in Toronto. It's a business specializing in creating audio elements for corporate branding, from voiceovers to sound design, and from music licensing to creating bespoke cuts for advertisements and TV shows. Anything from Rogers to Starbucks, even the Raptors. If you consume content on the internet or TV, you've already heard some of the work that they've done. We played their reel for 2020, but if you missed it, it's also in the chat put there by Jasper. So let's meet our guests. We've got Ryan, Brian, and Tyson. Jasper, please roll the clip.
I bet that was loud. Yo, I'm Tyson, last name Ketuyi. I produce music, compose music, direct music, live music, eat music, breathe music. Oh, and I direct voices and make a mean pasta primavera. I first got into music as a young lad, practicing scratching on my mom's turntable when she wasn't home, which eventually led to me DJing, mixing records, making mixtapes. So instruments, yeah, I play a lot of them. None of them very well, but one of the most important things about what we do in our business, especially at Grayson, is collaborate. That's one of the things that makes us all better, more well-rounded. I think that's what music should be. It should always be this quest for discovery. You know, you're given this gift of music, because I truly believe it's a gift. And when people appreciate it, it's a special, special thing. And it doesn't matter what the money is. It doesn't matter what the accolades are. None of that stuff matters. What matters is you get to do what you love and you get to meet cool people. And I don't want that feeling to ever go away.
My name's Ryan Kondrat. I am a partner and music director at Grayson.
How did you first get into sound and music?
Living in Australia and got a job with a record label and seeing how production was done on a laptop. Took that on as a profession, started much more in the music side of the world, producing Shad and working with bands like Broken Social Scene. I don't really stick to a genre. I mean, I've been everywhere from hip hop to rock and roll to advertising to film scoring. When it comes to creating music for advertising and commercials, I started at a time when it was very much a separate entity from songwriting or working with artists. And what I love now about being here at Grayson is the ability to start to merge those two worlds. The satisfying part of my job is when the advertisement is off the air, because then they can't come back for revisions.
Hi, my name is Brian Bernard. I'm an audio engineer / director here at Grayson. I've been audio engineering for over a decade, and I love solving audio problems. I think that's it. I know it sounds cheesy, but audio kind of found me. At the time I was producing heavily, writing my own music. I actually ended up landing a spot while I was still in college.
The fruity flavor of Juicy Fruit now lasts longer than ever before.
So the spot that I landed was a Juicy Fruit spot, not the jingle that everyone knows. And I remember getting the call being like, oh yeah, like your track's it's going live, it's going to air. That's really what drove me to continue to pursue audio and music. I haven't turned back since. What genre do I usually compose or produce in is usually hip hop / rap. One of my biggest influences is Timbaland. His sounds were so unique. I think Pharrell's another one, Kanye's another one. When it came for me to start producing, that's kind of what I wanted to emulate, creating my own sound, something that sounded unique. Oh, can I add one thing? I'm also heavily into Brazilian bossa nova and jazz. It's my secret subgenre that I absolutely love. For me, the most satisfying part of it is translating the creative idea and executing that through audio, music, sound design, voice recording, voice directing, all of it. All right, thanks for listening.
Amazing. For the sake of time, Jasper edited those intro videos. So if everybody wants to see the full series, please go to their Instagram. It's at wearegrayson.music. So sorry, We Are Grayson Music, and I believe that will also be in the chat. So without further ado, let's welcome Ryan, Brian, and Tyson to RPSM Talks. We're very happy you were able to make it, and this is going to be really a great way for us to end off this this year. I think this is a really great chat, because this is something, a lot of the students, I look at this and I'm like, wow, the students could be doing this. Like, everybody's got now an iPhone or a Galaxy or Android, or a small little camera, or they got the camera phone, and now everyone's got GarageBand. I shouldn't say that I'm taking some things for granted, but this is something that I think you can get started at any point. So I'm just going to kind of, go through, the three of you, just asking you what you do, what's your role, and how that fits into the Grayson world. So Tyson, let's start with you.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting us. We're honored to be here to mold the minds of the next generation of awesome musicians, really. And I think that for us, that's the exciting part about music, as you were just kind of alluding to there, Thompson, is the fact that you can basically get started anytime, because for all of us that you'll hear on this panel today is that it all starts with the idea, and it starts with the passion. So I think once you've got those things already inside you bubbling up, and the fact that you are all here, that's the first step, is making sure that you have that passion and that you have that desire and that drive to try to figure this thing out, because each one of us here will tell you, you never stop figuring out this music thing, whether you want to be, doing the voice part, or you want to be doing the sound effects part, or you want to be making the music. There's so many avenues and facets to this business that we're in, that we get to kind of be in as a sandbox, and we're always building and creating. And if you start with that idea and you start with that passion, you're always chasing that next thing to discover and to figure out. So that's the journey that you're on. And it's kind of, I think for a lot of you, it's the first step of the journey, and it's a lifelong thing. Whether you end up in this as a career or not, it's still something that will always forever be in you. And enjoy it, because I think that's the part of all of our lives that really gives us fulfillment. And life isn't just about a job or about a career. It's about being fulfilled. And I think for a lot of us, music is such a special thing. And the fact that we're able to do it as a career is very fulfilling. And yeah, it's good for the soul. So anyways, that's as deep as I'm going to go today. But enjoy, man. Cause I mean, the other two guys, they're awesome. But I love being here, and thanks for the invite.
No, thanks so much for, like I said, for being here and coming on this journey. I think for the students, just to kind of illuminate everything that the industry has to offer, and where they can kind of apply their skills and find a little niche for themselves. So Ryan, you I guess in the video I mentioned Australia. Is that home base? Not home base right now, but is that like the original spot, or you find yourself in Australia, came back to Toronto?
No, not at all. I was Calgary born and raised, to be perfectly honest. And music didn't have much, or at least the scene there didn't have much to offer me at that point in my life. I think I was about 20 years old. I hopped on a plane and decided I was going to go to Melbourne, and ended up getting a job with the label, and then ended up in a couple studios and discovering that I could be a contributor to the creative side of it. And that really ignited a flame under me. And that turned to writing songs, to producing music, to working in multiple fields that had anything to do with music. To be perfectly honest, I think I tried to find anyone who would pay me to make music for the majority of my adult life.
I love it. I love it. I'm in the same boat, still trying to find people who pay me to make music. And Brian, we'll let you introduce yourself and your role at Grayson and how you come to be.
Yeah, thanks for having me here and being able to speak. Kind of Tyson said a lot of kind of what I wanted to say, but I think for me, what was cool about my journey and what's interesting is that I guess at a young age, I didn't always know that I wanted to be in sound and music and audio. I actually wanted to be an animator. And, so in high school and stuff like that, I would spend, my time drawing. And I was going to school for animation for a while until I decided, music was going to be a part of my life. And, I was very much into it. And, as you were saying, Thompson, earlier, is that, I'd had my own PC and I was, messing around making beats on FL Studio. And, that love of music just grew. And, when it came time to do my internship, I actually went to my coordinator. And at that time, I'd made that switch where I wanted to be into sound design. I wanted to be into music. And so I asked her if I could do my internship at a place that did sound design for animation. And luckily for me, she was cool with it. And so kind of just to highlight, using the resources that you have available to you that are around you to kind of get to where you want to go, because you might not always know exactly what it is, but there's people out there that'll help you kind of navigate your way through the industry. And so if there's anything to kind of impart, it's that, as you're learning what direction you want to go, there's 100,000, different avenues to go, and the resources there are bountiful, right? And having something like this, I didn't have at my age, right? And so it's a very special thing to be able to have a panel. Like I would love to have somebody, talk to me about this kind of thing when I was that age. So I think it's really, really special.
Awesome. I think it's pretty awesome as well. I find actually it's great for the students. I will say selfishly that I'm the luckiest one because I get to do the hosting, and so I get to even learn more things about the industry that that they're still becoming clear to me. So Ryan, Grayson has a big sort of, I guess, range of things that they do. If you're getting involved on a project, what are people coming to you to work on?
I mean, that's a pretty open-ended question, to be perfectly honest, Thompson. So Grayson Music Group consists essentially of three different companies. So we have the Wilders, we have Grayson Music, and we have a new division called Single. The Wilders is what we would call long format composition. So anything over 30 seconds, music for television shows, music for movies, complete soundtracks, licensing for TV, etc. Grayson Matthews, or Grayson Music, is basically essentially ad focused. So we do a lot of original composition for advertising, licensing for advertising, sound design, mixing, voice direction, etc. And by voice direction, I'm talking about actually like working in a booth with the voiceover actor who's the voice you hear on the advertisement. And then we now have single as well, which is my primary focus of the company. And as you kind of witnessed in the video, I've always kind of lived in two worlds, one being songwriting and production for radio, for lack of a better descriptor, and the other being film and sync. So that side of the company is very much, I guess we're involved in multiple different artist projects, in developing artists, and then finding new and inclusive ways to get monetary value for the work that they're doing, to be perfectly honest. So we try to combine the three worlds, and we use all of them in succession to try and figure out different ways that a song or a piece of music can live past basically our hard drives. Because as anyone on this panel can contest, I think Jasper's included, we've all written a lot of music that has just never ever left our hard drive. So the idea is, how can we identify, create, and monify different aspects of the music industry for not only ourselves, but for the artists and the composers that we work with. So my role a lot of the times has to do with, maybe it's working with a established artist and bringing them into a advertisement, or working with a songwriter and having them involved in a score, or working with a up and coming producer and bringing a new cool edge to a target ad.
Awesome. Very, very, very cool. Brian, I'm going to ask you a question, because I know, looking into some of the stuff, video games has been a part of it. And I just saw recently Dr. Dre and Anderson .Paak, the Grand Theft Auto. So I think one of the coolest things about music that I didn't understand, when I was playing music or growing up studying, was just all the different places it was relevant. And some of the places that you're really into, that it didn't even occur to you that, whether it's the bells in the car door, or the video games that you play, that somebody, there's a musician behind that. For you, when you're sort of creating, or some of the projects that are coming to you, what are the things that you're finding the most excitement out of?
Like me personally?
Well, however you
or
want,
just anybody. Yeah.
Oh, no, you personally. I mean, I'm talking to you. I'm not.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think for me, what I love actually is, I love music in any form. As you were saying, it's like, I spent hours playing video games, as a kid, and so growing up, to be able to be a part of something, work on video games that incorporates music, it's just, and seeing what it's like behind the scenes and how things fit together. To me, that's a treat. So I love to see any sort of corner that incorporates music in any aspect. But it's interesting, because it's like, as we kind of go through the different, years and trends of what's popular, music always adapts to that, right? And so whether it is, when cell phones became a big thing, and it's like, oh, can you create a ringtone that's like super catchy? Like, music is involved in that, right? And now in the age of like social media, music still plays a big part of that, right? And so it's like, any corner of anything that we do, music is involved. And to Ryan's point, it's like, how can we allow these creators that are creating these ringtones, TikToks, and anything that's music based, how do we get these artists paid for the work that they do, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. Some of the students, I don't know if some of them are actually on this call today, but got to work on a library with Frank Dukes, and so and that music ended up being on a Taylor Swift song. So Tyson, I'm going to come to you, and it's come up before in some of the talks. Ryan kind of spoke about it, and to me, it kind of occurred that libraries are a place that aren't, there's sort of this quiet secret that people don't really know or fully understand. And to me, it's actually something that for many of the students here, that they could actually start doing on their own, which is like, how do you start to create your own library?
That's a great
and sound bank of stuff, so that, even whatever you're working on or friends are working on, you've now got an arsenal of things to reach for.
Yeah.
Aren't just like, just sitting on your hard drive, but also isn't you going and grabbing other things, things that other people created that you could easily create yourself.
That's right. I think that's a great point, because you started to touch on it when you were saying, music is appearing in all these places. When I go back to when I started on music, you told somebody you're doing music, they looked at you like that was a death sentence. Like, oh no, you're going to need a backup plan. Where it's like, now there are so many avenues for music to live, and people can make a living doing music. And it's not like you don't need to roll up to some big studio and pay them $4,000 an hour to use some machine that you would have had to have, 20 years of experience to know how to set up a 2-inch machine and actually hit the levels right, so you don't distort it and have to start over again. So like, the industry has changed so much technically, and then also the need for music has changed so much over the years with technology, that now is the time that you can actually make a living and have a career doing music. So when you talk about libraries, okay, you'll say libraries, but in our office, we say catalog. It just sounds more expensive. But essentially, that's what you're doing, is you're creating a portfolio of a body of work that you can do right now, which is amazing, because you could then take that and it becomes your this magical place that you go to for when there's a need. So if I were to give anybody some advice who's making music right now, I'd say start working on your catalog, because there's a need for music in everything. So for example, if I say to anybody on this panel, hey, I got a phone call yesterday from a guy in New York. He needs 10 different hip hop tracks for an ESPN thing. I need 5 of them that have to be big stomp claps. I need 4 of them that need to be hip hop. I need 10 of them that need to be pop. And I need 6 of them to be merengue with a Latin vibe to it. Like, okay, how am I going to make all that by the time he needs it tomorrow? Because they're going to be cutting all these new videos by Thursday, and they want to have it hit the internet by Monday. You don't have enough time to make all that music. But if you have a catalog, you can say, okay, let me go to my catalog, and you start making these themed catalogs of, okay, I got a hip hop catalog. I got a Brian's Bossa Nova catalog. I have a Latin inspired hip hop catalog. I got a Christmas music catalog of all these cover songs that I've done. And all of a sudden now you get that call for music. It's like, I don't have to sit there and start making it and take 3 days, 3 hours, however long it takes you to create an original piece of music. You don't have to do that. You go through your catalog and say, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. You've now increased your chances and opportunity of landing a gig because you are at the ready at all times with your catalog. So that's what we've done as a company, and we've incorporated the skills of many composers, our own in-house composers, and the way we work, like Ryan was saying, on a hard drive, it's just sitting there. It's not being put to use. That doesn't fly with our company. Nothing is wasted. If you spend 4 hours working on this 30-second piece of music that was supposed to go on the next Tim Hortons ad, but they had 10 options and they didn't pick your option, doesn't mean that your option is not great. It just means that music is subjective. So when it falls on a specific set of ears, maybe that person didn't have the vision for it. I mean, that's how I look at it when I'm talking about my music and it gets rejected. They just didn't have the vision for it. It's still great. It has nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with them. But that's the thing. You got to get into this mindset that nothing is wasted. And that's what we've done. And we've created that. We've created our own catalog of music that is at the ready. If somebody says, hey, I don't have a budget to do original piece of music. We don't have the time to do original piece of music. Whatever the reason is, we have all of this music that we can then pull out of our catalog and say, try this. And then all of a sudden now it's not just about, okay, this is the right piece of music. Maybe we don't even know what the music is. Well, I can't make you 7 different options of music in the next 24 hours for you to figure out what it is that's going to work best. That's the other great thing about catalog. People call it stock music or library music. It's got this negative connotation, but when we look at it as a catalog, it's this positive, it's more of this positive association with this music that you can then throw up against a picture and say, you know what? I never thought to put this big band jazz thing on this really tender moment that I saw of a grandmother and her grandchild having this tender moment. But because I was able to just grab a piece of music and throw it up just to see what it looks like from my catalog, this just changed my world. I never even would have thought of it. So there's an aspect of discovery that comes with having a catalog music that just can open up your mind to so many things. So get making the music now, start being smart about it. Say, you know what? I'm going to do a bunch of music in this tempo. I'm going to do this genre. I'm going to do these ones with vocals, these ones without. I'm going to have a 30-second version, a 15-second version. Start being intentional about what you're building. And I think that for me is probably the biggest mistake I made when starting to do music. It was random. Everything was everywhere. I had no focus. So now understanding that, hey, we need music for video games, we need music for commercials, we need music for people's albums, we need music for TikTok, we need music for corporate videos. Music is everywhere. So as the videos grow and all of the technology grows, the need for music grows exponentially every single year. Sorry, I get passionate about this.
No, that's great. You know, it's funny. So I actually got asked to do some music for a catalog for a company called Audio Network. So my little sad story there is I was actually supposed to fly out to London because they book 200 days a year at Abbey Road. And the cool thing is the project was still a go. The sad thing is I didn't end up getting to go. Yeah, that happens. So
this would be a great time to pull out your sad music from your catalog and play it while Thompson tells us that story. See?
Exactly.
Thank you. Brought the point home.
Yeah, you know,
expand on. Sorry, Thompson.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, okay, you go. Okay, perfect. I am the host, so let me do what I want to do. I'm kidding. You know, one of the things I say to students is, you know, if you think about your favorite artists, doesn't matter who they are, it's not a coincidence that they usually also have the biggest amount of work, right? So, and it's sort of like almost in order to get to some of that really great stuff, there is a catalog, if you will, of, it doesn't matter if it's Mozart or Jay-Z or whoever it is, that or Stevie Wonder, like there's albums upon albums, and like that's only how you get to some of that good stuff. Ryan, I'll let you say what you wanted to say.
I'm actually, I'll expand. Oh, sorry, go on. It's okay. I'll expand on what you were saying, to be honest. I think it's not just about a catalog. It's about having ideas at the ready. So in the world of songwriting, in the world of advertising, there's a lot of times that you are in a time crunch, as Tyson was just saying. And, you know, it doesn't always have to be a finished product, but what it does do is it allows you to start kind of going into different genres, exploring your creativity and having a different purpose in mind. Now, what ends up happening a lot of times is even taking advertising out of it. Let's say you're in a songwriting session and you're the producer. Now you get in with an artist that that's not really your thing, or you haven't really researched it enough. And in one of those sessions and in that environment, you're expected to produce really quickly. So sometimes when you hear somebody sing or when you hear an idea, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I got a beat that I can jump off of, or I've got this that I can jump off of. Or even if you're starting a commercial or you're starting a score for a movie, sometimes having that thing that registers in your mind when you hear what somebody's looking for can be the jump off point that allows you to create something even better right off the get-go. And a lot of times in our world, it isn't just about being good, it's about being good at the right moment. So you by constantly pushing the limits and by constantly pushing yourselves, you end up with a body of work, a better understanding of everything that's going on, even if it's just sound design. Now, a lot of the best producers, a lot of the best artists, a lot of the best writers spend hours working on sound design, getting a serum patch just the way that they like it, figuring out how so-and-so made that wobble on that certain bass line, whatever it might be, watching the watching the YouTube videos on how to make a sound. All of these things play into your ability to create, to produce, and to do it on the fly and quickly. And that, in my mind, is one of the biggest skill sets if you're trying to jump into this world that you can possibly find.
No, that's great, Tyson. It's funny what you were saying earlier about sort of the technology changing. I was chatting with my drummer this past week, and we were talking about, you know, AI, how you know, the disruption of like things being automated. And my drummer said something to me I hadn't really thought of, which was, hey, you know what? We're fine. We're musicians, we're artists. We've already had this disruption happen 20 years ago. We're now in the place where we have actually learned how to work with what the disruption, and it's actually just opened up more doors for many of us, you know, so that people like Brian can strike gold early in their careers. And so, Brian, I'd love for you to kind of just talk about that, you know, sort of the Juicy Fruit process, not necessarily the process, but just like how hard is it to land a spot? And, you know, it almost seems like you weren't even expecting for that to happen. And so, you know, is there a balance between, you weren't really, I don't want to say a throwaway, but you weren't expecting a spot to happen, and then you get the spot, and then the spot you thought you nailed perfectly, that's the one that doesn't. You're like, how did they not go for that? Like, there's no way that the next person brought something better than that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's exactly what Tyson and Ryan said. It's that I landed that spot because I had a catalog. And, you know, that's what I was doing day in, day out. I was just creating my catalog of sounds that I liked, music that I, you know, wanted to create. And so when the opportunity arose, I was still in school, right? And so I would make time when I could to write, but I had to have something kind of already on the go for me to complete and get that in by the deadline. And so that's basically where it started, where I had that framework for that song. Then I just changed a few things, submitted it. And, you know, Thompson, to your point, you know, you let it out into the world and you don't know what's going to happen, right? You kind of cross your fingers, hope for the best. And if it goes, that's great. If it doesn't, on to the next one, right? You just kind of keep digging back into your catalog. And, you know, if you work hard enough at it, eventually something works, you know, that one thing. And like I was saying, like that, me landing that kind of changed my whole path, right? And so, you know, just being consistent with it and, you know, just having, you know, building that confidence and being able to, as Ryan was saying, like work on the fly, right? I worked on it so much that changing things didn't become a problem. It's like, oh, sure, you want to change this up? Cool, no problem. You want this little revision here? Done, right? And so that was kind of the process of, you know, the beginning. And then you kind of learn and you adapt to how the industry works. And, you know, you don't let that stuff get in your way, right? And so, you know, I've had many, you know, other gigs where, as you were saying, I thought for sure, like, this is the track, like it's definitely, if they don't pick this, like that's it, right? But then it doesn't go, and you're like, oh, you know, I could either get upset about it and you know, stew over it, and sometimes it does sting a little, right? But you know, you keep going, you keep working at it, and then you build yourself back up. So it's
such a good. I love what you said there. You got to keep going, because that is the key right there. It's like not walking away from rejections being sour. Like you have to study and you have to own the rejection, because like I said, music is subjective. So it should never be looked at as like rejection. It's just like they had a different vision. So you can pick up on, okay, so they didn't pick what I did. What did they pick? And then a lot of times you could actually learn from those experiences, be like, oh, I see. They changed their arrangement. So when that skier jumped up in the air, they created a little hole in the music for it. So maybe if I had done that with mine, they would have liked my track better. Okay, so next time I'm going to make sure I really pay attention to what the picture is doing, and I'm going to customize my music to work with the picture a little bit better. So it's a great learning tool when you are told that, hey, we're going another direction, right? Because you can take that and let that be your fuel to, okay, next time I'm going to make it even better. Next time I'm going to figure out what I did to just give it that little edge to really make it be the one that stands out over the others. And in some cases, there is no rhyme or reason. They just pick something else because they have poor taste. There's nothing you can do about that.
That's what he says every time I land a track.
I love it. So
but honestly, in just to expand on that for 1 second, I think the real thing about all of this is that, and all of us can attest to it, is that the continuation and the trying. And we look at it as if you as like basically a batting average. And if you're batting 2.0, you're in the majors. So that's 2 of 10, right? So that means you're being rejected 8 times before you get one. So don't stress, don't fret, just take it, learn from it, reimagine the thing that you just did, find out what the person who won did to win the job.
Perfect. So I've spoken to, many students over the past couple of years. And one of the things I've actually said to people a lot is that, you should learn as much different type of music as possible, just like, because it'll just support anything you're doing, even if it's not necessarily the music you're going to end up creating yourself. Learn as many different, genre styles, like just expose yourself to all of it. If you're one of the RPSM kids right now, you're like, where do I even start with a catalog? What would be a couple of, either themes, moods that you would say, hey, you should, have like, a catalog that is a happy mood or a triumphal mood, or like what would be things you would say, here are a couple of things you should try and not say focus on, but here are a couple of places to start, here are a couple of moods to try and master, and find examples of that and then create your own version of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think definitely hip hop. That's number one right now. I think the world is in love with hip hop, and I think I think one of the great things about hip hop is that it incorporates so many other genres of music. So when I say hip hop, that seems like it's a very simple and down the road thing, but it's actually not. You'll hear many influences in hip hop where there's hip hop mixed with country, hip hop mixed with pop, hip hop mixed with Africana music. So really start to understand the genre and how wide it expands, because then within that, you're going to get, different tempos and different moods. Like you're saying, Thompson, that's a great point, is that we want stuff that's moody and chill and like feels very Drake style and emo hip hop. And then we want stuff that's just party stuff and it's pop and it's happy and it makes you smile or makes you laugh. Take me on a journey emotionally. And another good resource to do that is watch commercials. A lot of times, until you understand that these are all made up of things, most of the time people skip the commercials. I think on my LinkedIn or Instagram is like, I watch TV, but I don't skip the commercials. That's my quote, because I study commercials all the time. I want to see what clients have picked. I want to see what the industry is loving. I want to see what works amazing with visuals. So start paying attention to the things around you. As a songwriter, I learned that as I started doing songwriting camps in Nashville. One of the greatest things that I took away from that is being aware of your surroundings, being aware of every single conversation that you have, because somebody's going to say something one day and be like, that's a song right there. And that's where the best songs come from, is from just a conversation, something that people relate to on such a deep level because it's a conversation. So when I started being aware of that, I started going places and listening to conversations and listening to radio programs and listening to podcasts. And I would pull ideas out from everyday things, because now all of a sudden I was aware. That's where you need to be with commercials. A lot of people, they skip commercials. And I say commercials just because that's kind of our main thing that we do. But there's music inside that. There are voices inside that. So say you want to be a voice actor, right? You're like, oh man, Tyson's mic sounds amazing. You think my voice sounds good, but it doesn't. It's just good engineering with a microphone, right? That could be your thing. It's like, you know what? I want to learn how to like make my voice sound better. Fantastic. Maybe you like reading. Maybe you want to do voiceovers. Maybe you just love sound effects. You like, when you watch a movie, the only thing that you hear are the footsteps and somebody eating. The heck is that sound? It's like, oh, that's Foley. That's amazing. Who does that? Or it's ASMR. I don't know. But find out what it is that you love about what you're seeing visually and what you're hearing in audio, and that you can turn into something that you do as a career. Because when we make a commercial, and we'll show you an example of this in a little bit, we actually deal with all of these bits and pieces. It's When you watch a commercial, it just goes by as whatever for most people. But if you actually make this stuff, you start to study. It's made up of somebody had to come in and record a voice. Somebody had to come in and record all the instrumentation. Somebody had to make the music. Maybe somebody wrote the song. There's sound design. There's Foley. If you don't know what Foley is, we'll have a quick conversation about that. But it's made up of all these amazing parts that all come together. And for the average person, it just rolls by in 30 seconds. But for us, we study every single element. So as you start to build or you want to start creating music, wherever you are, start paying attention to the music. If you're on TikTok, what music is playing? What music comes up a lot? What music has gone viral? What are the things that people are resonating towards? Those are the things you need to start building in your catalog. Okay, fun hip hop with cool vocals on it. That's a thing in TikTok. I'm going to make a catalog that does that. Really soupy, emotional, orchestral music. That's something that shows up a lot on TV shows, in commercials, during Gray's Anatomy, whatever it is that you like to watch. Start making a catalog that does that. Just start paying attention to what people are buying because it's all around you. And that's what you can start making.
That's cool. It's funny. Also, go on.
I was just going to say, if I could just add to that, I think what's interesting, especially in my experience, starting off, from the visual side of things, is that what we're doing is we're looking for stories. We're looking for narratives. We're trying to tell a story, whether it's visually through animation, whether it's music, whether it's sound design, all of it carries elements of telling a story, right? What's the emotion behind what you're hearing or seeing, right? How's that affecting you? And what is it? How's it making you feel? And if you're creating something, what is it you want to make somebody else feel, right? When they're consuming your creation. And so as we're analyzing, if you want to kind of challenge yourself, it's like, if you're listening to another genre of music that you're not used to listening to, try and at least capture what it is that they're trying to get you to feel, or what story are they telling? If you look at it that way, you could start to break down and learn, maybe you might pick up a thing here or there about a genre of music that you're not accustomed to listening to. But once you do it enough, your ears start to pick up on things. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So when I'm creating something now, I can incorporate what I've just heard or learned about creating or telling a story.
Yeah, awesome. I think one of the cool things about this talk in particular for us and for the students is we actually get to see your work. We get to see exactly what you're talking about. So, Tyson, you really set it up. Both of you guys really set it up to go into, tape out the hate and just kind of walk us through that and just let us see how it works in when you're playing this out.
Okay, this is something special because this has not been made public yet.
That's a great place to stop. I think right now, and what we'll do is we'll open up the floor to some questions. We've got some members of the RPSM Youth Committee joining us this evening. So for those who are unfamiliar with the Youth Committee, it's a community-wide youth group for young leaders of high school age. They meet virtually every week at this time, Thursdays, 7 to 8, and engage in social activities, discussion, educational workshops like this one, and leadership and development. So if there's any questions from the youth committee or other audience members, please feel free to raise your hand or put your questions in the chat, unmute yourself. I'd like to actually call Sophia from the youth committee to kick it off with a question. Sophia, you there?
Yes, I am there.
Amazing.
Hello guys, I just want to ask a quick question. How do you guys come up with your sounds at first? Do you guys just come up with it on the spot? Maybe you're just sitting down and you just think of a beat, or do you mess around with beat apps?
Good question. I mean, it comes from almost anywhere. And, that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, is like, we always have to be aware. So sometimes I'll hear something on TV or in a store and I'll Shazam it because I really like the way that synth sounded on that thing. And then I'll go track it down and I'll keep that in the back of my mind as something that I'd like to explore down the road. Or maybe I'll jump on a loop site and I'll start going through some loops and listening to different sounds. Be like, ooh, that gave me an emotional response. So I want to build off of something like that. Or sometimes it's just going through presets on a patch in Serum or in Ableton or something, or picking up a guitar or hitting the piano. I have a Rhodes over here. Sometimes I just start banging on that thing. So you got to let the sounds find you by just experimenting and always being aware. And then just keep playing with it until it sparks an emotion in you. Because if it sparks an emotion in you, it's going to spark an emotion in somebody else.
Thanks, Sophia. Do we have any other questions?
Formal training, formal musical training. How much of each of you have that, whether it be classical, Western classical, or just going to music school? Can you talk about your musical background a little bit?
I have none, actually. I'm all self-taught, and I find that with technology today, again, it's like you could learn and self-teach, and again, there's so many different avenues of learning these days that it's pretty much endless. And so whether it is you want to go the traditional route or classical route and find a teacher, whether it be in person or online, having the tools to do that is kind of at your fingertips, right? And so, for me, it's also kind of a testament, I'm one of many people that aren't classically trained in anything, but yet can still find success in the things that I do, right? And so if anything, that could be encouragement for somebody that feels like maybe intimidated by it or think that they need to have this, classical training and years of experience before they could jump in. It's like, no, you could kind of jump in at any moment whenever you're ready.
I think to expand on that, the biggest problem all of us as creatives deal with on a daily basis is actually presenting our work to the world. But unfortunately, if you don't present your work to the world, then you'll never, ever get an opinion on it. So like Brian, I'm not the most classically trained. I can strum a couple chords on a guitar, and I know how to put together a good chordal pattern on a piano. But I've greatly relied on surrounding myself with the best people I possibly could in my career. And a lot of the production that I've been involved in, I was very, very forefront in hiring the best players that I could get to expand on an idea. I think Tyson actually knows what he's doing, though, so we'll let him talk.
I don't. I suck as a musician. And that's kind of been my lifelong journey. I've always said, man, I wish I was better. Man, I wish I paid more attention when I was in the piano conservatory. And I felt my way through in the dark on that whole thing, and I didn't take it seriously when I was young. And to the point where now with my own children, I grill them every day to say, hey, you guys have the time now that you're young to actually get good at your instruments, where I didn't figure out till later in life how much it would have benefited me if I had gotten trained more or practiced more or just learned more and focused on it with the time that I had available, because I would love nothing more than to practice for 2 hours a day. But I'm an adult, I have responsibilities, we have businesses that we're trying to run, and we have things that we're trying to create, and people relying on us for our time. I don't have 2 hours to spend on practicing piano every day. I'd love to, but I don't. So if you have the time now while you are learning and how to produce, how to create, just figuring out what you want to do in music, I'd say take the time to learn and really focus on it as best as you can and get the knowledge. It doesn't have to be traditional. It doesn't have to be classical music, but just get to a point where you're proficient enough that you can formulate ideas. Having said that, we work with people all the time who are not professionally classically trained at all, but they have a fantastic ear. And they've used technology to help them get to a point where they can piece it all together. And that doesn't make anybody any less of a musician than anybody else. It just means it may take you a little bit longer. You may not be able to identify that the G flat minor chord and that you need to use a relative major to get back to the home note on your root note of the bass. And like, who cares? It's like, I need you to do this. Dum 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 dum. If you can communicate that to a musician who can really play their instrument and they've spent the time, then you can have a conversation. In my director video, that's why I say what I say. I say I play many instruments. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, but I'm terrible at all of them. But that's okay. As long as I can figure out this is what I want it to sound like, I can get online and collaborate with people. We have a team full of great musicians in-house at our studio that they can play the heck out of a guitar or a bass, and we can share all of the work. And there's plenty of it to go around, and to not hold things too close where it's like, oh, I don't want anybody else to get credit for this idea, or I don't want to share my idea because I'm scared that maybe they won't like the bass line that I came up with, so I don't want to give it to a bass player. No, just be open-handed with everything that you do creatively, and just collaborate and let yourself be vulnerable and expose yourself with your creativity, because you will find fulfillment in that, because you will discover new things. Somebody may say, I love the 3 chords that you did in that, but what if the 4th one did this? And you're like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that. It's so simple. But because you shared it, you got to learn that. So I'm not trying to give you an excuse to not practice and not learn an instrument, because I believe there is some value to that. But if you just can't figure it out, or you feel like that's too daunting of a task, just keep creating anyways.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's great advice. I think it's actually cool. You touched on it, which is just, it's clear that the 3 of you are working together. You're clearly working with other people. It's nice to see that, like, you're fans of each other. For me, that's kind of what's come through, chatting with you this evening. It's just like, you kind of, you dig each other's work, and it's nice to see that teamwork, especially because, for many students, studying their instrument can be a very isolating experience. But as you kind of get out there into the professional world, you're constantly working with other people, and it's not such a solitary exercise. So that's pretty awesome.
It's not just working. Yeah, it's not just working with other people. I mean, I've always gauged my interest in somebody else or the work that they do by my jealousy levels. So the more jealous I am, the better you did. And if you can respect that and appreciate that, then you want to work with those people, because they're going to make you better.
That's so good. Competition breeds champions. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yes. Even though they took it from Lewis Hamilton, but anyways.
Hey, but listen, this is actually another great point here, is that everybody here should be collaborating together. Like, studying your instrument by yourself is fantastic, but open it up to your friends and look at what we're doing here. I'm in Nashville. You guys are in Toronto, and all different places all over the city. Like, we are communicating, we are being a community together. There's no reason why you can't do something like this creatively and do it with music. We've proven that. Through COVID, we had to continue working, we had to continue collaborating. We actually discovered that we could write songs like this. So we've been writing songs with people in the UK, in Los Angeles, Nashville, Toronto, New York, all across the globe. Nothing is keeping us from being a community together. And I think there's so much value in that. So use the technology and start getting together with people so that you can learn from each other and feed off each other's vibe and energy and molecules.
Awesome. I see Richard's hands up, but I think we should ignore it. Anyway. I'm kidding. Richard,
I'm feeling the love. No, I have a quick question. I'm like Thompson, I'm picking up on that too, the great vibe between the 3 of you, and but also the sense of focus, and you're just very present in this conversation tonight. I wonder, Tyson, earlier you mentioned just being kind of all over the place with as we are, how have, this is for all 3 of you really, how have you refined that sense of focus in your work?
Oh man, that is definitely nothing to do with me, and that's to do with our team. Like, you can see we have members of our team here, and they don't have to be, but because they're our team and they want to see what else is going on, yes, 3 of us are in on this, but everybody's here together, right? So there is such a strong liaison between every single one of us. Everybody plays such an important role in our whole organization that we have people that are pushing us to make sure that we are at places on time, that we're getting this together in the right fashion and organization. We are accountable to each other, and I don't want to let one of my team members down, and they don't want to let me down. So there's this constant, like, we got to keep building each other up, and we have to keep making sure, oh, I see that my partner didn't answer this email. Let me check in and make sure they're good. Hey, did you get to this email? Yeah, I'm all over it. I got it. Okay, you take care of that, and I'm going to go take care of this. Okay, I got this. Now you go take care of that. The sooner you can get a team together of people that are like-minded and have a common goal, a common vision, you are all following the same North Star, you keep them close and you love on them as best as you can, because that's why we do so well. It's because we are such a strong team. So yes, I may be the loudmouth on, one session that's seeming like he's in directing all of the things that are happening in music, but I've relied on our sound designer, who painstakingly picked up every piece of sound design and did all the Foley for every one of those movements for the client to come back and say, yeah, I don't really think it needs sound design. It just needs music. Yet he spent 4 hours working on that. I relied on him, the person who figured out the schedule, because I look at a calendar and I just see dots. So somebody else has figured out, okay, the picture's going to be done on this day. We got to get a rough cut this day. We're going to get this person to come in and do a guide voice this day. And you need to be here to do this on this day. Okay, I'll be there. Like, all of that has come together for them to make sure that I've got all the tools to make sure that I can do what I do really, really well. But meanwhile, I've already relied on the rest of the team. So that's where the focus comes from. So don't be afraid to share and get your team together. And if you're not the greatest bass player, find somebody in your community who is a great bass player. And then you just, it's such a relief to let go of things and delegate things and have somebody else handle something that they're perfect at and they're great at. So if it's not something that you're really good at and you can't get your focus together, get your team to help you with that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, with that, I'm actually going to take this opportunity to just thank the three of you, Tyson, Brian, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here.
We're not done yet.
You're not done?
No, more questions. I see like 5,000 people here and we're giving you all this gold and nobody has a question. Somebody ask something, because we're going to give you anything, any answer you need. We are here for you. So please ask the questions. Okay, here's one. I'll touch back on what Jasper asked, because you asked a great question earlier. What about covers? Covers is a fantastic thing to look at, because you can start doing music for your catalog that are covers, and it's a great way to get noticed, right? There are rules about releasing covers and putting them online and stuff like that, but it's a fantastic way to start honing your skills and understanding hit songs. If you understand how to make music around a song that already exists, like you take an Adele song and you make your own music around it and you re-sing it or get somebody to re-sing it, that's a great exercise in learning how to work with music that you already know resonates to the world. So covers are fantastic. Having them in a catalog is great because you never know. And the legalities of covers are you are allowed to do them as long as you're giving credit and the publishing goes to that person who actually originally wrote it and you've created a new master. It's all technical legal stuff, but if you want to get into it and you have questions and want to know more about that, we'll be happy to share. But covers is a great way to get your catalog going and to start learning even how to make great music, because you're rebuilding something that has already been time tested and proven as being a hit.
Cool. Actually to touch on that as well, because I'm starting to get old too. But you can rip the videos from YouTube and recreate those commercials. So start to do sound alikes. Just rebuild it. Rebuild the commercial the way you want to. Try to rebuild it the exact same way it is, and then try to rebuild it in a different way, in a way that makes sense to you. So
it's a great way to understand how to write to picture as well. I did that many moons ago myself. In fact, that's how I put together my first reel. Was with my partner at the time, was taking commercials and redoing the music to them and then presenting them to directors.
Yeah, same thing with sound design too. It's like, I would cut together game trailers, right? I would rip video game trailers and then I'd create my own sound design. Like, okay, you have Halo or whatever, and they have their sounds for what the guns sound like and people running through grass and gravel and what the vehicles sound like. It's like you could create your own and see what you can do and match it up against what was done, right? And just kind of compare and just go to the next thing. You could take a movie and take a scene from a movie and re-sound design the whole thing, right? It doesn't only apply to music. You could do that with almost anything.
Great idea.
Yeah. I tried it with Pac-Man when I was a kid, but it's gotten a lot different since then.
Wow, you went way back. Put your hand up if you know what Pac-Man is. No one? Okay. Sorry, Ryan. I wonder if Tyler E has a question. I'm gonna start calling out names now. Tyler E, do you have any questions? Tyler's on our team. I put him out there. Anybody else have any questions?
I think Ali might.
Ali definitely has a question. Oh, here's a question. All right, in the chat, we got a question. How do you find opportunities or job postings to share and apply your sounds? Is it mostly through connections? Great question. Ryan, you want to take that?
I think it's through all of the above. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to share what you're doing with other people. That might not be it might not be coming up to, say, Grayson Music and putting in a job application, but maybe it's as you're going through a college course and you come across a filmmaker who's just starting out and is kind of inspiring. By creating that connection, you're creating the ability to work on something. There's sending your songs off to sound libraries to seeing if they'll use them. There's pitching songs to artists. There's if you want to go the engineer route, there's interning at a studio. I mean, I think everybody who's made something in the music industry started by doing something for free for somebody else, and unfortunately, it may not be the most glamorous way to start all the time. I emptied garbages myself,
I got
but
coffee and pizza.
what it does do is that it allows you to create these relationships with people who you can impress. And I think a lot of the times what it is it's not only about what you're creating, it's about the person that you're showing yourself to be, and the work ethic that you have, and the personability that you have, and all of those, while are not the most important thing, are very much important in creating the relationships that you'll need in order to foster these different worlds so that you can do this for a living.
Great.
I like that. I always say sorry, go on, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's like, I'm a prime example of that. It's like, you can find opportunities almost anywhere. You kind of create your own opportunities, right? I was in animation and I found an opportunity to get my way into a studio. I just wanted to be in that space and learn about it, right? And so I found a way to kind of make it happen. And so to Ryan's point, it's like, okay, cool. You have these connections, or you create an opportunity for yourself to get yourself, let's say, in the door, or, somebody. Once you're there, then what do you do with that, right? And so one of the things that we love, and I think that's kind of what Tyson is kind of touching on by encouraging everyone to kind of ask a question, is like, make yourself visible, make yourself heard, make yourself be known, and let people know that you're out there, right? And art and music is this very personal thing that we kind of hold close to our chest a lot of times, and we are afraid to share it, but that's actually one of the most beautiful things you can do, is share your art and your music and your voice and all of that stuff, because you'll find the right people to connect with, to they'll help you get you on your path to where you want to go ultimately, right? And so it's this sort of community-based thing that we're kind of all talking about. It's like, find your people, find your community, and create those opportunities for yourself. That's really what it comes down to. And it's not about being the most technically skilled, it's who has the most hustle sometimes, right? And so, there's always two sides to what we're talking about here. There's the art, and then there's how you show up, right?
That's so good. I had a friend who used to say all the time, was on his answering machine for years, to take advantage of an opportunity, you must first recognize it. I was like, that's good. Because you guys are asking for opportunities. You're actually sitting in front of an opportunity right now. This Zoom is full of all the people that work at one of the most successful music places in the city. So take advantage of your opportunity. Ask the questions, reach out to us, send us your music, get some feedback. Like, we're all willing and excited to partner with you guys on your journey with music and anything to do with sound. So reach out. This is your opportunity. You can find any one of us on LinkedIn. You can ask your faculty members and all the people here how to get in touch with us or get some music to us. We're happily listen. We are constantly in need of music and fresh talent. I'm just teasing you guys, but the opportunity right here, it's going to places where people in the industry are talking about things and asking the questions and getting to know them, letting them know who you are. Like, if I'm saying, hey, ask questions, that's an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to me. And then if I find something about you that I like, which is your music or even just your personality or your hustle, I'm going to try to do something to help you. So that's key to this business, is always being aware of the opportunity. Okay, so we have another question from Kayla. what's a good low budget entry level hardware to sample and to sequence sounds that I can export into DAW? So, Kayla, are you saying that you want to just find samples and be able to sequence them in something? Maybe you can unmute and elaborate on your question.
She said yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, there's lots of ways to manipulate sounds, even if you're using a device like an iPhone or an Android. There are lots of things that you can download, I think, for free, where you can actually use the microphone on the device to start chopping up samples. I know Machine has one. I think FL may have one as well. But even if you've got a computer, if you've got a Mac, if you have access to one, there's a lot of software like GarageBand, for example. It's just as much a sampler as anything else. You can put a sound into the computer, figure out how to get the sound into the computer using the microphone inputs or the an interface, which allows you just through a USB to connect a sound device that actually allows you to get sounds in and out of the machine, get it into a thing like GarageBand, and you could just start manipulating right away. But again, you could start as simply with just a phone app and record using the microphone and just start learning how to manipulate sound. It's a great way to learn, because then you can apply that to your voice. You can apply that to a kick drum. You can apply that, as long as you understand the concepts, you can use it on almost anything.
And also nowadays you can have subscriptions to different websites that allow you to download and use VSTs and attach them to you don't really need external hardware anymore. You don't have to go and buy like a Juno or a keyboard or buy drums. A lot of this can be done as we would call in the box, and there are multiple free ways of getting a hold of it. There's ways to illegally download it. I'm not going to talk about that. And there's also ways to manipulate it and find different sounds, whether it be Splice, which is I think a $10 a month membership, but you can also then try out and use different what we would call VST synths. So synthesizers that live within your computer, and a lot of the stuff that's being done in our world is actually not being done live on the floor anymore. And when we talk about sound design, sometimes we're not just talking about what you would hear in a actual movie or a television show. A lot of the sound design that's being done in creating a track is being done on a virtual synthesizer. And you're going in, learning how to manipulate an LFO, what's the difference between a sine wave or a saw, how to create your own sound internally in the box, how to take a train running down a track, import it into a synthesizer, manipulate that sound in the synthesizer, add some more layers to it, and then create a whole new tone or sound that is original to you and to your creation. And that in itself is a whole nother aspect that we didn't even touch on yet tonight.
Yeah, there's to kind of do the opposite. There's actually one thing that's actually really amazing that you could do if you're on a really tight budget is, and I've done this, is, you could go to Long and McQuaid and you could rent out a bunch of gear for so cheap. So there's like microphones that you could rent out for a whole month for like $4 or $16 or whatever it is. And like, these are studio quality microphones, or instruments and pieces of gear that you could try and test out if you're interested in kind of learning a little bit more about the hardware and what kind of goes into having a studio setup of your own if you're looking to do that one day. So that's one thing that is really, really, take advantage of completely if you're on a budget.
Cool. We got a question from Tasfia. She wanted to know whether or not all the sound design effects would be recorded separately, or if you would do some of them in the same recording.
It could be a little bit of both. Sometimes, when they're on pre-production, which is when they're recording, let's say a commercial on set, and it's live and you have real actors, some of that stuff still gets used into the final broadcast mix that ends up happening. But like, as Tyson was saying earlier, a lot of that stuff is built afterwards, after it's shot, because you have a lot of, let's say, background noise, and you might not be shooting in the best of environments. You might be outside and it's really windy and you can't use a lot of the stuff that was recorded on set, but having access to
these sound effects libraries, you could kind of mix and match what gets used, what doesn't get used, what you can keep, and what you don't keep.
Awesome. Amazing. I'm going to wrap us up there just in the interest of time. And although I think kids are off school tomorrow, but it's getting late.
Oh, so we go another hour then. It's great.
I don't know. Are they actually? I don't have any school age children.
Anyone who wants to talk to Tyson after the fact, his phone number is.
Send all your music to me.
Anyways, well, you know what? I mean, it's already been put out there. So again, once again, like, thank you so much for joining us. This was really great. It was great to get a chance to see your work, get a chance to see you together collaborating. Brian, thanks for reminding people that you gotta build your community. You know, Ryan, I think you touched on, it's like you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from, so you really have to be open to it. And so we really appreciate that. We've put Tamla's put the handles for everyone and Grayson Music in the chat, so please go into it and check it out, and then bug them, get into their DMs, send some music.
Yes.
Music. I think one of the biggest, takeaways, even for myself, is just like, start building that catalog. If you haven't already, everyone's creating, and it's really how you're going to just kind of hone in and define your own sound, understand what that is. And so it'll be really great. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think Richard has other plans for some more stuff with the RPSM students and some other artists that they'll be working with. Just a special thanks to Simone and Tamla again from the Youth Committee for supporting this event. Stephanie, who is in Italy, so I don't think she's joined today, but Jasper as well for bringing this series to life behind the scenes. Can't believe we're at number 9, and more to come. So this is really great. Please check back with us on our YouTube channel because this will be up there for everyone to see and relearn more and more as we go along. And like always, I'm Thompson Egbo. This concludes the 9th installment of RPSM Talks. We will leave you with a song called Made for This by Carpus King featuring Misha. It's a song Tyson had a hand in creating, so we're excited to see this and send us off. Thanks so much.